This is lesson number 4. Class is in session. Welcome everyone to Abortion Ethics 101. If you're just joining, check out the playlist. We've already covered the basics around the status of embryos and fetuses, which is the topic most people want to talk about. But we've already covered that. So if you have more questions, we can do additional videos later. This is not what this video is about. We will now start covering the second chapter in the ethics of abortion, and that is the status of gestation, which often boils down to the status of women, but it's actually around the status of gestation. And the question here is gestation mandatory? Once you're pregnant, do you have to go through with it? If yes, why? If not, why not? Does it depend? If it depends, what does it depend on? This question is completely distinct from the question of the status of embryos and fetuses, and how distinct it is was first made clear by a 1971 article by American philosopher Judith Jarvis Thompson, who told the story of the violinist. This is a thought experiment where you have to imagine that you have, let's put a sort of twist to that story. Imagine you've been a victim of a very bad car crash and you arrived at the hospital in a coma. You don't know what happened. They saved your life and you are now in intensive care, and now you are waking up in intensive care. When you wake up, you don't really understand what's happening to you, and you become increasingly confused when you realize that not only are you in a hospital bed in intensive care, but there are tubes coming out of you and going into the patient on the next bed over. A nurse comes to you and explains to you that you have been in a car crash, that your life has been saved, but also explains to you with a lot of compassion that actually there was another victim in the crash, a virtuoso violinist, and his life could only be saved by linking his circulatory system, his cardiovascular system, to you. And your heartbeat is beating for him as well now. And he will recover. This is not forever. He will recover. But until he does, if you ask to be unhooked from him, he will die. And we can say that the prognosis is it will take about 9 months for him to recover. Now, one thing is clear, the violinist is a person. The violinist has full human rights. No one is disputing that. This is Judith Jarvis Thompson's point. She says, okay, let's grant for the sake of argument that the fetus or the embryo is a person. She's not conceding that it is. She's just saying, well, what if? What if it was true that a very early embryo or a very early fetus is a person? So here is an undisputed person. The violinist is an undisputed person. In that situation, do you have to accept remaining hooked up to the violinist? If you think that the question is not absurd, if you think that the answer is not obvious, if you think that the answer is not such that it should be obvious to everyone, then you have understood that there is a separate question about the status of gestation, regardless of the answer you give to the status of the embryo or the fetus. So let's have a quick discussion about this before we move on. What do you think the answer should be to the violinist question? And bonus points if you tell us why you think what you think. Remember, these are controversial topics. Remember, people will be deeply invested in their answer. Remember that it's very unlikely that you will all agree. Please be civil in the comments. Yeah.